Hey, so today I'm going to be showing you how to build an AI agent for your marketing team that researches top performing LinkedIn content in your niche. So if you're trying to grow on LinkedIn or you're trying to get your company to grow on LinkedIn, this is a cheat code to understanding what's working right now on LinkedIn. So let me show you what the results look like, and then we'll do an overview of the flow in n8n. So what I'm going to do is hop into my Slack, and what you can do is get a weekly report if you want. And again, this is an engagement analysis of folks that you decide that you want to analyze on LinkedIn. So you can see I have an audit here, and this is an engagement analysis. So first up is Greg Eisenberg, one of my favorite follows on LinkedIn. And this is going to give an executive summary of his content. And so what it's doing is it's pulling in recent content from Greg's LinkedIn. It's also pulling in the analytics like likes and comments to see what type of content is driving the most engagement for Greg on LinkedIn. And so you can see here, my agent has written up this report about key engagement drivers. Number one is practical startup ideation. And it's saying these posts receive the most engagement by focusing on tangible startup ideas, personal entrepreneurial journey and vulnerability, and specific methodologies for idea generation. Then it's going to give us even more engagement drivers like AI is the great equalizer, tactical lists with applicable ideas, emphasis on self-sufficiency, a content pattern analysis, and then recommendations on how you can implement this type of content in your own LinkedIn content. And this agent works for as many folks as you want to target on LinkedIn. So you can see next up, we've got Justin Welsh, and it's going to perform the same analysis for Justin's content. And after Justin, we've got Alex Hormozy, right? So I picked 3 influencers on LinkedIn, and it's going to send me this one very in-depth, actionable research report on how these folks are doing on LinkedIn, what types of content they're posting, what types of content is getting the most engagement, and what themes are resonating the most with their audience. And so again, the idea here is this agent is going to do all of this work for you in the background, send you the report in Slack and through email, so you can implement some of the ideas and recommendations into your own LinkedIn content. And by the way, if you want access to this template completely for free, along with all of my other templates, feel free to hop into the free school community that's linked below this video. So inside, we've got 1,100 members who are trying to grow their marketing teams and marketing output with AI agents and AI automation. And I also have a free classroom that includes all of my YouTube videos and all of my templates, so you can just import these n8n templates right into your account. So again, be sure to check out the link below this video to hop into the community. All right, so let's do an overview of this automation in n8n, and then I'll open up each node and explain exactly what's going on. So this is going to start with a scheduled trigger, right? So you can set this to run, I would recommend, once a week. And what it's going to do is it's going to search your list here, a very basic Google Sheet list of the top influencers in LinkedIn, or the top folks that you want to analyze on LinkedIn. So it's literally one column in Google Sheets. You can see I've got 3 folks here. You can have as many people as you want. And so our agent is going to pull in those profiles, and then what it's going to do is it's going to scrape their recent content with an Apify scraper. Then we're going to group that output by author, and then we're going to use a little code node here to compute the different metrics, meaning the engagement, the comments, the repost, all of the engagement metrics that are attached to each post on LinkedIn. Then we're going to build a prompt for our AI agent and then send that off to this AI agent over here to perform the analysis of the LinkedIn content and, importantly, the metrics as well. Finally, we're going to format that analysis for an email, send it off to Gmail, and as I showed before, send it to your Slack as well. All right, so let's click into these nodes and I'll explain exactly what's going on. But again, if you want the template, just make sure to hop into the community linked below. So as I mentioned, you want to think about how you want to kick off this automation, right? So I think a scheduled trigger makes the most sense. So this is set to run once per week. I think that's a nice cadence for analyzing people on LinkedIn. So I've got a schedule trigger here. It's going to run every 7 days at 9 a.m. So then what it's going to do is it's going to read your Google Sheet to see what profiles you have in here. So you'll want to create a new Google Sheet. Again, there's literally one column, LinkedIn URLs, and whoever you want to analyze on LinkedIn, just put their profiles in here. And you can add to this list, you can remove this list. So every week it's going to refresh and come into the latest version of your Google Sheet to see which profiles you want to scrape. And so that node right here is this Google Sheet get rows operation. Okay, so you can see I've set it up here for the operation function is get rows. The document is going to be the name of your document, which is the LinkedIn Content Researcher. It's sheet 1. That's all you need to do. Now, when you execute this step, what you should see is an output which has the number of items that equals the amount of folks that you have in your spreadsheet. So you can see I'm tracking 3 people here, and my output has 3 items. So your output should look like that. All right, now that we have the LinkedIn URLs, we need to actually go out and scrape the content, right? Get the actual content that they're posting on LinkedIn along with the engagement metrics. Now, to do that, we are going to use a tool called Apify, which is basically a store of different web scrapers, right? So you can scrape TikTok, Instagram, Google Maps, all these different scrapers. So what you want to do in Apify, and I am on a free plan, although I'm about to run out of free credits, but you can use the free plan. And what you want to search for is LinkedIn post. And the one that we want here is this LinkedIn post scraper by Supreme Coder, which is this one right over here. Now, when you click into that scraper, it might look a little intimidating, but I promise it's actually not that hard to set this up. So once you're inside, what you want to do first is give it a source URL. Now, right now, it actually doesn't matter which URL that you put in. You know, it would make sense to put in one of the folks that you're going to analyze. So you can see in mine, I've put in Alex Hormozy, but you want to put a URL in here. And then you should think about the limit per source, meaning how many of their posts do you want to scrape? And again, we're looking at recent content here. So if you're going to do this once per week, it actually probably makes sense to maybe limit it to 7 posts. So it's going to scrape 7 posts from each creator each week. Now, some folks do post a little bit more on LinkedIn. So if you wanted to bump this up, you could, but I think 7 is a good number here. And now for these 2 options below, scrape additional information and get raw data, I want you to have these both ticked on because it's going to give us the metrics, the engagement metrics that we need. All right, so once you have those settings configured, we're going to go back to n8n. Don't worry, we're going to come back to Apify in just a second. But what we need to add next inside of n8n is this HTTP request node. So click that onto your canvas. And when you click into it, I'll show you mine here. You can rename it up here to Get LinkedIn Posts. And now we need to configure this. And again, it may look a little confusing, but I promise you it's not that bad. So for the method, what you're going to want to do is make sure that you have post selected for the method. Now, for the URL, we need to input a Apify URL, and we can get this URL directly inside of Apify. So let's go back to our LinkedIn post scraper. And what I want you to do here is in the top right-hand corner under API, go to that drop down and just click on API endpoints. And what you want to do is scroll down here to this third one. It's called Run Actor Synchronously and Get Data Set Items. Now, you're going to want to copy, and you can see this copy right here. Copy this URL, and just an FYI, it does contain your API key at the end of the URL as they warn you up here. But you want to copy this URL, go back into n8n, and for this URL field here, just paste it right in there. All right, so now we have our URL field filled in. So for authentication, you can leave that off, but what you want to turn on next is this send body. So make sure that you tick that on. For body content type, you're going to want to select JSON. And then for specify body, you want to make sure you're ticked on for using JSON. Okay. And now what you can do is change the box field below here to expression. And you can expand this. Now, yours is going to look different than mine, but I'll show you what to paste in here. So what you can do is just delete what's in there right now. So your expression field is going to look blank. Now, where are we going to get this information? We're going to get it back in Apify. So if you click back in to Apify, just X out of here. And now we're back on our kind of main screen. And what you want to do is next to manual, you'll see this JSON tab. So just click that tab. And I want you to select everything that's in this box. So I'm going to copy this and then go back to n8n and then paste it in. Now, we're not done yet because we do need to change one thing, right? So right now, what this is going to do is we're kind of hard coding in a value here. And we're telling Apify, hey, every time this runs, I want you to scrape Alex Hormozy's profile. But remember, we're doing, in this example, 3 different profiles, right? So this is a variable. So what we want to do is bring that variable inside of the JSON here. So what I'm going to do is in between these 2 quotes, I'm going to delete Alex Hormozy's profile, right? That entire URL, I'm just going to delete it. So now I've got 2 quotes. And what I want to do is drag in this variable over here, right? So this field that says LinkedIn URLs, I'm going to drag that in like that. And now what you can see is it's going to turn green, which means it's using a variable from our Google Sheet row called LinkedIn URLs. And now you can see on the right-hand side, it's populating the first result, which is Greg Eisenberg, right? And so your expression for the JSON field should look like this. Now, once you have that, you can click out, and all other settings for this are fine. What you want to do next is click on Execute Step, and your output should look like mine. Now, the number of items is going to depend on two things. Number one, how many people you have on your list, and number two, how many limit per source you set that to in Apify. So remember back in the manual settings here, this limit per source, which is how many posts you want to scrape, we did 7. Although when I originally did mine, I had it at 5, right? And so that's why you see 15 for mine the last time I ran this. I was scraping 5 posts each for 3 people. So that's 15 items. So that's what your output field should look like. And again, I'm in the JSON view here. It should look like mine right over here. All right, so let me click out there, and that's the HTTP request field that's going to pull in those posts from LinkedIn. Now, you'll notice one thing about this output is that there's no author name at the top of this content, meaning, Greg Eisenberg's LinkedIn name and LinkedIn URL is not in this JSON output. And we're going to want to have that information because when we send our breakdown in Slack and in email, what we're going to do is group this by the creator. Right? So Greg Eisenberg's LinkedIn content themes, right? So we want it all together. We want Greg's post under Greg's name and Alex's post under Alex's name. And so what we need to do is configure this JSON in a way that appends the author name and the author LinkedIn URL. And so that's what this next node is. And this is a code node. And don't worry, ChatGPT did all of my coding for this. But what you want to do in your n8n is just go to the node, search for code, this one right here, and drag it and connect it to the Get LinkedIn post. And let me just open this up. And again, this is just 12 lines of code. ChatGPT 100% did this code for me. So you can either take a screenshot of this right now, or again, hop into the community and this template will be available for you to download. But what this code is doing when I hit execute step is it's going to append. Now you can see we've got Greg's author name and his author ID, not the URL rather, the author ID, which is his LinkedIn author ID. So now his name is attached to every single post so we can keep them together. That's what this node is doing. Again, it's a code node, and I renamed it group by author. All right, so that's part one of our automation, right? We're scraping the LinkedIn content and we're grouping it by author. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to get engagement metrics per creator for the total of their posts, meaning if they have 3 posts, how many total comments do they have? What is the average number of comments? Now, the Apify scraper does extract individual metrics or individual engagement metrics on a per post basis. But again, we want to aggregate this per creator. So again, going back to the results from Slack, you can see here that we have likes and comments attached to every post. So that's what we want to get inside of the automation. So going back into n8n, what you can do is add another code node. And again, I promise you, I do not know how to code. This was done entirely with ChatGPT. So add another code node to your canvas, attach the previous code node to the input here. And what this is going to do is compute the metrics, right? So this is a bigger chunk of code, but you can see in the output here, and the mode, by the way, is I'm going to run once for each item. And now you can see in the output, and there's going to be 3 items here, so 1 for each of my creators. Note that. So below the author name that we pulled in before, we now have these metrics, right? So we've got the totals, meaning the total number of likes, the total number of comments. I don't know why Greg doesn't have any repost data, but we have the average number of likes and the average number of comments. So again, that's the purpose of this code node, is to pull in those metrics, to assign them to each creator, and then we're going to be able to include that information in the analysis. So again, this is a code node. The mode is run once for each item. Again, if you want to grab this code, you're going to have to join the community because I can't walk through each line of this code. But if you want to do it yourself, you can literally just explain to ChatGPT what you're trying to do to ask it to write you a code node. And I think it one-shotted this the first time I did it, and it worked perfectly. All right, so what we want to do is, again, feed these metrics, feed these posts into AI. Now, before this, and again, this was with an assist from ChatGPT, is we're going to build the prompt before feeding the prompt, meaning, this is the AI node here. And normally what you do is you build the prompt in this node itself. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to add a node before that. So I want you to search for edit fields or the set node, okay? And then add that and connect it after the compute metrics node. Now, what this is doing is it's building the prompt for us in this node that we can then pass off to the AI model. Now, let me open this one up. And so for the mode, I have manual mapping. And then for the name of this field, I called it prompt. And I changed this to string. And again, ChatGPT wrote this entire thing. I'll open it up in a second. But the field is called prompt, and the type of field is called string. And then you want to be in expression. And let me just open this up. And again, this was entirely ChatGPT. And so what it's doing here is it's kind of combining the prompt with the variables from the previous node, right? So it's saying, and again, it's wrapped in curly brackets here. So everything is an expression. And so the prompt itself is right here, right? You're a social media growth consultant. Below are 5 LinkedIn posts from, and then we're pulling in the author name, plus engagement stats. And this is kind of the prompt itself. Then below that prompt, we're pulling in the metrics, right? So we're providing that as context so it can understand, hey, these are the types of engagement metrics that these specific posts were getting. So we've got total likes, total comments, average likes, average comments, and all of these fields are getting pulled in from the previous node, which was the code node for the compute metrics, right? So all of these fields are dragged in over here. Finally, what we're doing after the metrics is we're dropping in the post, each post that contains all of the metrics, right? And again, so I've got a post section here, and there is a bit of code here that ChatGPT wrote. It was actually quite brilliant because you can see the output over here. So this says post 1, and it has the number of likes with emojis, by the way, and the number of comments. And again, this is all under Greg. So this is all grouped together. So it's saying, hey, these are the 5 posts from Greg. It's saying this is post number 1, here's the engagement metrics, and here's the actual post itself. And then I'm going to scroll down, and then we have a line break here. And then it says, here's post number 2, here are the number of likes, here are the number of comments, right? So it's doing it creator by creator and post by post with each. So each post has its specific metrics attached. And we're passing all of this in creator by creator into the AI eventually. But this node is just building up this giant prompt that includes all of this information. And again, we're doing it as a set node. And I really do like the way that it came out with ChatGPT writing 100% of this. So again, you can either screenshot this, or I'm going to say it maybe for the last time, hop into the school community and you can grab this template so you don't have to try to do this from scratch. All right, so that's going to give us a prompt, right? Which is great because the next step that we're going to do here is an AI step. So if you search for LLM chain, what you want here is this basic LLM chain. So drag that onto your canvas here, attach it to your build prompt. And by the way, the build prompt output should include the number of items that match the number of creators. Again, I have 3 creators, so my output is 3 items. Make sure that matches. So anyway, going back to the basic LLM chain. So when you click out of this, you're going to need to attach a model here. There will be a plus button under model. And when you open this up, you just have to select the model that you want. I selected Claude 3.7 Sonnet from my model list. So your list will look like this. You can choose any model that you want. All right, so in the actual agent node itself, now that we have our prompts, a lot of the heavy lifting is done. But for source for prompts, you want to change this to define below. And this is going to allow you to put in a user message. So let me open this up. And what we're doing again is providing that context, right? So we've got the author, and again, you can see the results on the right side. So here's the author, and then we're giving in the stats. Total, the same as we did before. Total likes, total comments, total reposts. And this is coming in from the previous node, the build prompt set node. So again, we're feeding in all of that same information. And then we've got this same kind of bit of code over here that we discussed earlier that includes all of the post numbers and all of the engagement metrics. So that's for the user prompt. And then below that, you're going to want to add a system prompt. Okay, so make sure you select system prompt and then open this up. And we've got a short system prompt here since we already have giving it so much context. So I'm just saying, hey, you're going to get several LinkedIn posts plus their accompanying details. I might change that to engagement metrics. Craft a single overview that pinpoints the dominant content themes attracting the highest. Again, I'm going to change this to engagement, the highest engagement, and explain the underlying reasons those topics strike a chord with their audience. Okay, so that is the system prompt. You can leave all other settings alone, and what your output should look like, again, make sure your items match the number of creators. It should look something like this, which is a kind of a big blob of text when you execute this step, right? So this is the analysis for each creator, okay? So you can see I've got Greg here, I've got Justin Welsh, and I've got Hormozy, right? So this is the AI doing the analysis based on all of the metrics and the content that we've given it. All right, now that we have our analysis, which is really the bulk of the work here, it's just going to depend on how you want to receive this information. So originally I just had email, but I added Slack. And before we do that, I do want to clean this up a little bit. So again, going back to the analysis, it's kind of a big blob of text here. And so I asked ChatGPT to help me kind of reformat it. And so I want you to add another code node to your canvas and attach it to the analysis. And let me just open this up. And again, this is just a little bit of code that ChatGPT wrote. And it's going to clean up the output. So again, when I hop back into LinkedIn, I can show you the final output. So we've got some headers here. We've got some bullets, and everything is kind of organized and written in a way that's kind of easy to consume in Slack and inside of email. And not only that, just as importantly, or even more importantly, is you'll notice now my output has one item. So in the previous step with the AI analysis, we had 3 items, right? 3 different analysis for each creator. But if you're going to be receiving an email update or a Slack update, you don't want 3 Slack messages or 3 emails. You want 1 email or 1 Slack message with everything combined. So now in my output, you'll see I have 1 item. So that's also what this code node is doing. It's combining and formatting. And so your output will just be 1 big chunk of text, but it will still be broken up by each creator. So that's that code node there. And then finally, it's just a matter of setting up Slack and Gmail, right? So you can add a Slack node here if you're a Slack person, drag that to your canvas, connect it to this format email node. Let me just open mine up. So I've connected to my Slack account. The resource, by the way, when you search for Slack, the Slack node here is going to be send a message. Sorry about that. So send a message. So again, when I open this up in resource, it will be message, operation will be send. And then if you want to send it to a specific channel, you can see I'm sending it to my n8n testing. Message type, I have simple message. And now the only thing that I really need to provide here is the text itself, right? So change that to expression. And what you want to drag over, again, I had initially set this up as email only, which is why this field here is called email body, but it doesn't make any difference. So I dragged this email body field, which again is an output from the previous code node. I just dragged that right into message text as an expression. And so that's going to send all of the output directly into Slack, okay? So again, when I hop into Slack, this looks like here, it says audit 1, meaning the first person, which is Greg. So again, we've got our summary, our engagement drivers. It gives us 4 engagement drivers here, why it resonates, a content pattern analysis, and some recommendations, and then it moves on to the second person, okay? So that's the Slack node. And then Gmail is a similar setup. Just add a Gmail, send a message node here, or send a message action, and then it's gonna be a similar setup. You've gotta connect your Gmail account. Resource is message, operation is send, and then for the to field, if you want to send it to yourself or someone on your team, you can hard code the email in there. Now, the subject, again, is coming from the previous node, the code node. ChatGPT actually wrote part of that code to generate an email subject, which is going to auto include the date, which I think is kind of cool. So you can grab that email subject field into the subject field here in Gmail as an expression. And then for the message, again, expression, you just want to drag in the email body, and I can show you what that looks like as an email. So when I hop into my Gmail, you can see the output, right? So again, whether you're a Slack person or an email person, this is the output. So again, same thing, audit 1, patterns and themes, engagement, action plan. And so you'll get a nice summary emailed to yourself once a week. So that's the Gmail node in n8n, and that's really the full build out. So again, I know there's a couple code nodes in there, but ChatGPT can really write all of that code for you. But I really think this agent is a great way to stay on top of your competition or even your inspiration, right? If you're trying to grow on LinkedIn, which I am currently doing right now, understanding folks in your niche, what kind of content they're posting, what kind of content is resonating with their audience is hugely important. And this is going to automate 99% of that work. So again, if you want this template for free, one last reminder, hit the link below, hop into the free community. Do me a favor. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, say hi in the comments below. It really helps me out. I'll see you in the next video.